The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join your host, who is a multiple #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer. She's the founder of Genuinely Hyphen You and has 30 years experience of helping people step into their genuine, authentic power. And now, here is Gina Gardner, your host of Leadership for Life.
Hello there and welcome to today's show. Got a great show for you and I have a wonderful guest. It's really a show of two halves today and it's all about investment. I'm going to talk to you about investing in yourself, and then I have a great guest, Hattie Fawcett, who's going to talk to you about how you can get investors in your business and how you can position yourself. But before we get started, I just want to remind you that we are very proud to be members of B1G1, Buy One, Give One. And for every guest that comes on, we will donate on their behalf. For every comment or question that you ask live during the show or through email after the show, if you're listening to the replay, then we actually donate meals for the hungry, education, also health things or environmental things. So just use the first couple of letters in your request or your email, and we will make sure that that donation goes through. But more of that later. So let's talk about investing in ourselves. I find it really interesting how many people are prepared to invest in a new handbag or to a suit, or to invest the money in terms of going out for a drink or a new car, which actually doesn't do much to move you on to create a quality of life that was different to that you had already. And yet, by investing time and sometimes money in yourself, that you can raise yourself to a very different place, a place where you have access to so many more opportunities. And I wanted to be really clear with you about investing in yourself and what I mean. I've met many people along the way who think that going on a course is in and of itself an investment. Now, it can be a fabulous investment. But if you go on the course and you don't do anything differently at the end of the course than you did at the beginning of the course, then you have to question, how big an investment is that? If you've read a self-help book, and you know that there are loads of my books, for example, on Amazon, those people who actually read the book and try out some of the principles and strategies are investing not only in the book, but in the time and the real deep thought about what's working in their life and what they want to change. That's the true investment. Investing in self-care, making sure that you are the most vibrant, energetic and healthy person that you can be physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Those are real investments that will actually pay and keep paying dividends. But if you're just jogging along in the same old way, you'll continue to do the same old thing. You'll get the same result as you've always got. Investing in you means that you value you, that you actually recognize that you are worth that investment, whether that is in terms of time and or money. And the interesting thing is that if you don't value you, will anybody else? If you don't value you, are you giving yourself the very best opportunity and giving yourself the wherewithal, the tools with which to not only recognize those opportunities, but to actually grab them and to make the most of them? Now, most people think about education starting at preschool and going on till, well, for some people, they'll leave at the end of secondary or high school, or it could be when they've gone to college or postgraduate, and they go on to do masters and doctorates and so on. And they see education and investing in their education in that very specific way. But I want you to think about investing in yourself in a much broader sense. It may be that investing in yourself is giving yourself some of the skills so that you can use your leisure time in a more productive way. And by productive, I don't necessarily mean that you end up with an end product, but by productive, I mean that it recharges your battery, that it engages you in a way that you feel much better at the end. Investing in yourself can come in so many ways. And it could be that investing in yourself is giving yourself some quiet time each day to journal or to meditate to get out in the garden, to do something creative, because you know that at the end of the time spent doing that, you're going to feel so much more resourced. Investing in yourself can be as simple as drinking more water and doing some deep breathing exercises. That's investing in time things that will make a difference. And if you are interested in journaling, if you go to Amazon, there's loads of self-help and journals with very specific interests and some that are much more general. If you go to my page, you'll find that there's lots there, and they're very inexpensive, and they're quite a good way to get into journaling because each day you're given a prompt which can help you. But what about things like gratitude? Do you invest in yourself in a way where you are present, where you are in the moment, because then you can't be worrying about the past or anxious about the future? Do you actually enjoy each moment? I work with a lot of people who are trying to identify what their purpose is. And before we start working, they've often got very frustrated that they don't know what their purpose might be. And then when we talk about living life purposefully and making the most of each moment, recognizing that, by being mindful of your health and vitality, there is a purpose within that. And so often, all of those practices which lead to health, vitality, and to a real connection with your inner wisdom and ultimately with Source, then discover that their true purpose in life becomes much clearer. And it's a great starting point, but it also leads to you being curious rather than, I've got to find my purpose now, I've got to find it now. Because it doesn't work like that for many, many people. Some people are born knowing exactly what their purpose is, but for others, it's about being curious about what fulfills you. But investing in yourself can also mean that if you're struggling, for example, if you've been abused or you don't quite know what direction to go in, or you know what direction you want to go in, but you can't find a way of getting there, then investing in a great coach, somebody to support you, hold your hand, and at the same time give you a kick up the bottom if you need it, that's a huge investment in terms of what you're going to get out of it, particularly if you engage. But I suppose for me, the most important message that I hope you'll take out of this, life isn't a spectator sport. It's very nice to go and watch the football or the hockey or the basketball or the football, but ultimately watching it is not the same as engaging in it. It's your life. You're the common denominator. Investing in you means that you will improve your quality of life. And even if it's good, you can make it even better. But recognizing that as the common denominator, it is for you to engage with the process. You're not a victim to it. Nobody can actually do it for you. They can signpost it. They can offer you practical strategies that have been known to work in other situations. But ultimately, the deciding factor is you. And in the same way that somebody can sit in a classroom and sit there for years and years and years and come out no wiser and no more skilled than they went in, if you want a great quality of life, then investing in yourself is really, really important. Now, if you're listening or watching this, I want you to ask you, what's your dream? If you had the dream life, what would it look like? What would it sound like? What would be part of that? Because understanding what it is that you want is, for many people, a real departure. They know what they don't want. They're very clear about what they don't want, but they keep regurgitating what they don't want rather than actually couching this in terms of what they do. And if you remember the program that we had with Michael Lozier, for example, who wrote The Law of Attraction, what did he say? He said that if you focus on what you do want rather than what you don't want, then you're much more likely to achieve it. I'd take that step further. Identify what you do want and then plan backwards to where you are now and create those steps. Investing in that time, whether you're talking about your personal life or your business, is really important. I was talking to somebody who is about to become a client yesterday, and they were saying very successful business, turns over several million a year. But he and his management group, what he was saying is, we're constantly reacting rather than being proactive. And to be proactive, you have to invest the time in order to be strategic. And then, of course, there's going to be some elements which are reactive, but you can only be proactive when you have been strategic and you've got things in place. Now, that is actually true of your private life as well, your personal life, your relationships. Investing in the time. If you've got a relationship and you want it to be great, you have to invest some time in that. You have to have some skin in the game and actually, want to know about that partner and what they need, how they need you to be, and they need to know the same for you. All of these things require an investment on your part. And the interesting thing is that the more you invest and the more wisely you invest, the greater the return. And when we come back after the break, we're going to be talking about how do you attract investors into your business. And I would say to you, before you start to look for investors in your business, are you investing in yourself in your business? And we'll talk more about that after the break. But it's your choice. You can carry on doing what you're doing, or if you really want to get the best out of life, I would urge you to put aside some time and some money and invest it wisely with people who can help you become the best you can be consistently and more easily, because they are the equivalent of a guide that's going to stop you going, into deep waters or into the quicksand or cul-de-sacs. They'll help you find the quickest and most efficient way to get to where you want to be. Don't go away, because after the break, I'm going to introduce Hattie Fawcett to you. And she is an amazing lady who has so much experience in helping businesses find the right investor and being ready to do that. So, see you after the break.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email gina@genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hello there. Let me introduce my guest to you. I'm going to read her bio. Hattie Fawcett is the founder of Focused for Business. She's on a mission to make it quicker and easier for founders to raise equity investment. Hattie runs an 8-week funding accelerator, which shows startup founders how to prepare for investment, how to find the right investors for their business, and how to close the deal quickly. In the last 12 months, Hattie has raised over £4 million for the startups she works with individual businesses raising between £10,000 and £840,000. Now, in today's current climate, finding the right investor is so important. But it's not just as easy as Oliver going and with his begging bowl and saying, please, sir, can I have some or can I have some more? You have to be investment ready. So without more ado, let me introduce Hattie Fawcett to you. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So how does somebody become the sort of expert that you've become? It's an interesting job to do. So I'd be very interested to know, how did you get here?
It's a long journey, really, Gina. And I would not have imagined myself doing this if we'd spoken, I don't know, even 10 years ago. I suspect I wouldn't have realized this was where I would be. Originally, I was a marketeer and worked for some wonderful companies in the UK, moonpig.com, woolworths.co.uk, and really enjoyed that. But something was missing for me, and it took me doing an MBA at Imperial College in London, and then joining a friend I made on that program in his startup to realize that the thing that really lights my fire is creating businesses from scratch in those really early days and helping them to grow. And I did that in this business that I joined off the back of an MBA. Then I did it again with my own business. And that business grew quite quickly. So to make the most of it, I had to learn how to raise investment. And as I said, at that point, I'd never done it before. So I made mistakes along the way, and you learn from your mistakes.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure we'll talk about that. But ultimately, I raised 2 rounds of funding for that business. And I then went on to look after some of the investments that Kelly Hoppen made when she was a dragon on the TV show Dragon's Den. It's a bit like Shark Tank in the States. And so I've seen investment from both sides of the fence, what it takes to raise investment as a founder, but then what angel investors and other types of investors are looking for when they back your business. And knowing that, I've sort of stumbled in a way into doing what I do now, which is making it quicker and easier for early stage businesses to raise investment. And I absolutely love it because I'm using all the experience that I've had over the course of, these various careers I've had, and bringing it all together and allowing people to see a way through this slightly smoke and mirrors world of raising investment.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I was talking to somebody just this week who they run a charity, and they said that they were planning on going for grants, which I know it's somewhat different. And we started to talk, and I asked her for some clarity about what it was she was the charity did and how they were going to raise what they were raising the money for. And what struck me is that there was very little clarity about the organization and how they were operating, and they were just going to go and say, give us the money. And anybody who's watched Dragon's Den or Shark Tank will know that it doesn't work like that. You can get your fingers burnt very quickly. So I just want to, before I ask you some questions about the principles and so on, for those of you who are listening who aren't in the UK, whilst there are some differences, the underpinning principles, would you say, are the same wherever you are in the world in terms of being ready to be investable in? That's not very good language, but you know what I mean.
I absolutely do. And you're right. The principles of raising investment are the same. Some of the legal jurisdiction and the legal documentation relating to the final deal that is struck and signed may vary depending on your geographic location and the legal system that you're using in that area. But actually, the principles of preparing for investment, talking to investors, and then negotiating a deal are the same.
So imagine that I'm a business person and I've come to you. What are the common mistakes that people make, and what do you think makes people to be a good investment? Because effectively they're investing in you, aren't they?
They are, and you, and sometimes your founding team. Certainly, a lot of investors like to back a founding team, but the people in that team and the extent to which they're the right people because they've invested in their skills, their competence, their knowledge, that makes them more investable than others, shall we say?
Yes.
But you ask about the mistakes. I think one of the most common mistakes I see is that people look to approach investors when really all they have is an idea in their head. They haven't started to either flesh out and think about how that idea might come to reality, whether that's written on a business plan, or perhaps even more usefully from an investor's perspective, started to make things happen. You know, if you've got an idea for a product or a service, can you start to develop that before you go for investment, even if it's not the all singing, all dancing version of what you're going to ultimately create, but it's enough to test whether people really want what you're selling. And I think that's one of the most common mistakes, thinking you're just going to raise money off the back of a good idea. You can, but that's the exception rather than the rule. And it's much easier to raise investment if you can get to a product, get people using that product or service, and ideally start testing how you attract more customers. So, you know, what might the routes to market be, the marketing plan, the channels you're going to use?
Because, you know, I think often people don't see it from the other point of view. They just see it as the bank that's going to just give them money. I suppose rather like the bank of mum and dad. You don't have to create a business plan, do you, for the bank of mum and dad? You just say, can I have some, please? And if they're willing and able, they'll give it to you. But I wonder, you know, from your experience, what are the things that investors are really looking for? And if we start off, you talked about the founding team, and some people might not be familiar with that phrase, but we're talking about new businesses, and actually there are more businesses being started up now than probably at any time in history, aren't there?
It's really true. I read a wonderful statistic that there's 76 businesses being created every hour in the UK at the moment. which is a phenomenal statistic.
So if that's the number in the UK, if you actually translated that into the US, I suspect we're talking about multiple times that, and then globally, that with knobs on.
Absolutely. Yes, and the people behind these businesses are really important. Whether it's a single founder, the person who has the idea and gets the business off the ground, or whether there's a co-founding team, so a group of 2 or 3 or 4 people who come together to make the idea happen. As a general rule, it is easier to attract investment if you've got more than one person in the founding team. But as a really sort of general sort of starting point for what are investors looking for, I think there's 3 things you've got to think about. It's about being clear about what the opportunity is and conveying that to investors with great clarity. I use a mechanism called the 7 essentials of a successful pitch. There's 7 key pieces of information that investors want. The second thing you've got to be clear about is about where you are on the journey, because different investors get involved at different stages, because there's different degree of risk, and we all have different attitudes to risk. And so it's important to be clear about where you are. Investors often talk about traction. They say, how much traction have you got? And it baffled me for a little while as to what traction might actually be. But I boil it down to an equation. It's about having a product or service, often called your minimum viable product or your MVP. So it's not your singing or dancing version, but at least it solves a problem. Having got that, you want to add your first happy users, or better still, your first paying customers. The distinction there is about whether they love it so much they're willing to pay for it. And then when you've got those 2 things, you want to multiply those 2 things by a proven and predictable marketing machine. And that's really about being able to say, if you spend X amount of pounds on Y number of marketing channels, you'll get Z number of new customers. And that happens every time. X plus Y equals Z every time you do it, predictably, without fail, or within a range at any rate. So that's the second thing. You need to be able to articulate with evidence where you are on that traction equation. Have you got the product? What does it look like? How many customers? Are they paying you? What sort of revenue? Can you get more customers? And what does that cost you each time you do it? And then I think the other thing that investors really want to know is, what's in it for me? Because this isn't philanthropy. This is investment with a view to getting a return on their investment. So they want to make money in the long term, and different investors will have different time periods for making that return. But that's really important. So you have to talk about how you value your business. How many shares are you selling for the money that is being offered by the investor? And you have to talk for the investor about how they'll get their money back. And that usually means talking about an exit, a way in which you might sell or sell the shares in the business down the line. And it seems odd sometimes, I often think, to start talking about exit when you're right at the beginning of the journey. But I was really caught by what you said in your little introductory talk before I came in, about you have to start with the end in mind. Really, you have to think about what is the result you want and work back from there. And that's exactly what investors are doing. They're thinking about the result they want, and then they're working back to where you are today.
Thank you. That's really clear. I suspect, though, there are many people who are just starting out in their business who are thinking, I haven't got any customers, or I've got a very few, and certainly I have no idea what my marketing equation is going to look like. And I know that you offer the opportunity to help people get ready, because well, before we go there, my gut feeling, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you get one bite of the cherry with an investor, that if you don't actually make the most of that opportunity, it doesn't hang about. You can't keep revisiting it because they'll have gone on to something else. Would you say that's true?
I think in many ways it is true, in that you have one chance to make a good impression with an investor. They're busy people. They'll give you a limited period of time to make that impression on them. And then they're going to make up their minds whether this is the opportunity for them, or they're going to move on and look at some of the other many opportunities that, if they're serious investors, come across their desk every day. So yeah, you do have one opportunity to make that good impression. So it is important to be ready when you go for investment. But I think it's also important from your perspective as the owner or the founder of a business, because raising investment is a distraction. It's very time consuming, and it takes your eye off the ball of the day-to-day business of running your business. When you're out having meetings with investors and presenting your business pitch and talking about your financial forecast, you're not there in the business, running the business day to day. And there are some statistics that say at the moment it can take 15 months to close a funding round. Well, that's a huge amount of time to spend with your eye off the ball and not on your business. So the way I like to encourage people to think is, absolutely, you've got one chance, and do it in a focused way. It's 3 months is a typical campaign for working out whether you're going to raise investment, preparing for raising investment, speaking to investors, and closing the deal. And if you don't do it in that period of time, well, maybe you should stop, pause, take the feedback from the investors, look at what might need tweaking or improving in your business, do those things, and then go again and do a try for investment at a later date with those things in place, rather than continually bang your head against a brick wall and go and pitch endlessly, but always get the same result of no investment.
I mean, ultimately, that rule is for everything in life, isn't it? My favorite definition, a quote is Einstein's definition of madness is to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I have to say, to some extent, we all do it at times,
of course,
but particularly in the business world, when investors, as you say, are very busy people, and there are so many businesses who want their investment. It's not as if there's a shortage of people asking for investors to invest in them. You have got to stand your head above the crowd, so to speak, haven't you?
Absolutely. With that figure of 76 businesses being created an hour, now not every single one of those is going to be going for investment, but you can see the sort of choice of opportunity that investors have. And, there is competition for their money. So they are going to put their money where they perceive it is going to give them the best result. So you have to work hard to demonstrate why your business is investable, and more investable and more likely to deliver a return than any other business they might be looking at.
I think that's such sage advice. It's so important for people to recognize that, this is a crowded market. And if you can't sell your business to an investor, I suppose you also have to ask the question, are you selling your business to your client base, to your customers? Because you need the same level of clarity about what it is you are offering and how you're offering it for them, don't you? So it's good practice, not just for the investment, but also in terms of your organization, to have that level of clarity. And in my experience of working with businesses, and I've worked with many, not startups, but usually businesses who want to take their business to the next level, one of the reasons that they are limited is because they don't have that clarity, and it's that sheer drive has taken them so far, but then they get stuck because they haven't got the strategic planning in place, or the right people, or the right skill set. They haven't got that clarity.
That's absolutely right. And clarity is key. And I think it's difficult, let's be honest, when you're working in your business, sometimes it is difficult to step back and see what you're working on in a day-to-day way through other people's eyes, through other people's viewpoints. And that's why I think working with a coach or going through a program to help prepare yourself for investment is absolutely key, because it's their role to keep the bigger perspective, ask the right questions, and draw out from within what it is that you do know as a business owner. You will have the information, you just perhaps didn't realize its relative importance to an investor, or you didn't know how to couch the different aspects of what an investor is looking for. I mentioned there's 7 things an investor wants, and some of those, you're quite right, overlap with what you need to be able to share with a customer, so that they will be looking at, what is the problem you're solving, and you've definitely got to know that if you're going to serve your customers correctly. You need to be able to talk about who experiences that problem and how you can reach them. So who's your audience, your target market? You need to know that as a business owner as well. So you will have that. And you need to be able to show how you monetize the opportunity, how you make money. That's really important. Then an investor's looking at traction. Where are you on the journey? That equation I mentioned. And then they want to know about the team. Really important. The skills of the team, the experience, the sector knowledge of the team, because it is people that make things happen. And so if you can't talk, if you haven't got built around you a good team, and you can't explain what they bring to the business, then there's a problem there from an investor's perspective. And then the final thing will be the deal. They want to know that what's in it for them, and that's about valuation and term sheet.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. I mean, what struck me is that, I work with businesses strategically about helping them be more successful, be more profitable in a holistic way. And that's a lot about making the most of their own leadership by looking within and becoming the leader within their own lives and the leader of the business. And then the skill set in terms of getting the best out of people. But it's really interesting that I would not work with businesses who are trying to prepare for investment specifically. That's not my area of expertise. And I think what it highlights is how often you need a hybrid in terms of help and investment, that, someone who has gone that distance, who understands the issue, someone like yourself in terms of investment, who knows it from both sides. My expertise is leadership and people and strategic planning. And as you said, there are little bits, there's quite a lot of overlap.
There's definite overlap, yes.
But when you're talking about investment, for me, that's something that has so many aspects of it which are very specific. And therefore, investing and having that expertise and somebody who can demonstrate how to do that effectively and efficiently makes a lot of sense. But it's interesting, isn't it, how many businesses or business owners who struggle on and who think I'm not making enough money, so I won't invest, when actually it's the very time that they need to invest in order to get themselves over this huge hump from struggling to thriving.
Yeah. And another, I totally agree with all of that, Gina. And there's one thing I would add, in that sometimes going through that process, certainly of preparing for investment, allows you to see things that perhaps you haven't seen for yourself in the business, and that you fix as part of preparing for investment. And actually that gives you choice, because at the end of that process, you may go, oh, hang on, we may not need as much investment as we thought, or we may not need investment at all, or at least not yet, maybe in another year. And that allows you back into the driving seat, back in this position of control, of saying, well, actually, we're not going to go for investment after all. We're going to choose not to, or we are going to go for investment even though we don't need to, because this will allow us to move faster, or allow us to do something quicker, or whatever it is that it unlocks for you. So, but it's that process that allows you to see that and make the choice powerfully.
Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because so many people think that if you throw money at something, that will create success. When in my experience in my own business, and also in the many businesses I've worked with, that is not the case. It is about how you use your resources, people, time, energy, and money. They're all finite resources, and you can use your money to buy other people's expertise, experience, and time. But it's interesting, isn't it? Though you think that those investors will want return on their investment.
Yes.
If you are paying back your investor for the money that they've lent you, that's great if it's really adding value. But if it's not, that's a drain on your profits that otherwise would have been going into your coffers to do with whatever it is you choose.
Yes, and that's where equity investment comes into play rather than a loan, which does get paid back. Generally, with early stage businesses where investors buy equity, that's shares in your business or stock in your business, depending on the language you like to use. When they're buying shares, there is an expectation actually that they're not going to get that money back until such point as the business has grown in size, in revenue generation, hopefully in profit as well. And another business, one option might be another business comes along and wants to buy the business in order to bolt it on to their business and allow them to deliver a better service to their customers or enter a new market, or there's lots of reasons why you might buy a business. Or you grow the business to such an extent that actually you decide to float on a stock exchange. And then you provide, in doing either of those things, either the sale to another business or a float on a stock exchange, your investor can sell their shares, and they're generally selling them at a higher price than that at which they bought them. And therefore they're getting a return. But to do that, you have to have created value in the business. And actually, most early stage investors don't want you to pay them back with dividends. They'd rather you put the money back into the business, used it to do more marketing, develop more products, build a better team, because that will help the business grow. So you're investing in the business. And then in time, maybe that's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, timeframes vary, they get their money back because somebody wants to buy the business. And that's the real return that they're after.
Brilliant. Thank you. Now, I know you have a program that helps business owners ensure that they are investment ready. Would you like to describe that program to our viewers and listeners?
Yes, it's called Funding Accelerator, and it's an 8-week program that uses a methodology called the Key to Unlocking Investment. It's a methodology I've developed over several years now. If you think about a key, you pick it up by the head and you position it in the lock. And that's where we start with Funding Accelerator. How do you position all of the assets in your business in the right way to attract the right investor for your business? Because different investors are looking for slightly different things. Then if you think about the key, a key has usually got 3 little prongs on it. And we look at 3 things: traction, that equation I mentioned. How do you evidence that? How much money are you raising? The ask. And that's important that you get the ask right, not just in terms of the shopping list you might want to buy for things in your business, but also for the milestones that money is going to allow you to achieve, the key things that will unlock the next level of investment. And the third prong is valuation. If you're going to take money into your business, you need to offer value back in the form of how many shares are you going to sell. With those things, we put them into the keyhole, if you like, the pitches that unlock investment. You're going to need a pitch deck, a forecast, a valuation. These are the sorts of assets we create on the Funding Accelerator. And running through the whole process of the Accelerator is investor targeting, identifying the right investors for you, your business, your stage of business. And then we have a proven outreach process for reaching out to those people, warming them up and getting them on the hook. And that is what the Funding Accelerator does for you. You're in a cohort of people on the same journey. You have mentors supporting you through the journey. You have tools and templates and playbooks that show you how to go through the journey. And it all ends with pitch day, where you pitch to your peers, the mentors, and the investors that we invite along.
Sounds amazing. And the details have been floating along, but just for ease, where should people contact you? Just if you could say that for those who are who are listening rather than watching?
I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me on there as Hattie Fawcett. I think there's only one actually. And on my website, which is focusedforbusiness.com. And a really good place to start if you're thinking about raising investment is on the homepage of my website. You'll find there's a link that says the Startup Investment Scorecard. It's a really quick little quiz in a way, 20 questions that you can answer that give you an immediate personalized report that says how ready is your business for investment. And that's a great place to start, because you don't want to start all this distraction of raising investment unless you're pretty sure you've got everything in place and you're going to succeed. Or it's good to identify the areas where there's things that are missing so that you can then apply your focus and come and work with, whether it's me or a different coach or through the funding accelerator. You can work on focusing on those things that investors are going to look for that are currently perhaps not up to par in your business.
I think you have offered people a lot to think about and some really constructive advice, and a huge thank you for joining me on the show. Before you go, your choice for B1G1 is to provide education for children. It's a global project through B1G1. Quality education is one of the most powerful and proven vehicles to achieve sustainable development. And I'm not surprised that that's the one that you have chosen. And we will donate on your behalf to help people around the globe achieve a greater level of education. So it just remains for me to say a huge thank you for joining me. And, you know, people, if you are in business, this is a lady that you really need to make contact with. So thanks very much
for having me. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
It's been great. Thank you. Don't go away. We've just got a few minutes left. After the break, come back and I'll see you then. Thanks again, Hattie.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for a Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hello there. I let the interview go on longer than normal because it seemed to be such a valuable resource to you all. But I just want to end the show by saying, please do think about investing in yourself. If you look on the websites, that's genuinely-u.com or ginagardnerassociates.co.uk, there are lots of opportunities for you to invest in programs that are designed specifically to help you become the leader in your own life, the leader in your own team or business. They're designed using tried and trusted methodology and principles, and they can make all the difference. If you're not sure where to look, then just email me at gina@genuinely-u.com. But please do make the choice to invest in yourself, to recognize that you are the most amazing commodity, that you are valuable, and that ultimately the more you do invest in yourself, the greater quality of life and the greater success that you will achieve. So take care of yourself, become the leader of your own life. Please spread the word about the program and get other people to come and listen. And we'll see you next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to The Leadership for Life with your host, Gina Gardner. Make sure you tune in to W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV next Thursday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more Leadership for Life. If you missed any part of this episode or just want to hear or see it again, you can find the archive of the TV show on Talk 4 TV's YouTube channel and the podcast of The Leadership for Life on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcast.